I'm Bill Kassel, and this is Free Expression. This program is all about conveying the Christian message from a Catholic point of view and defending the liberty which makes it possible to do that. We discuss classic literature, end-of-life planning, and using media to teach the faith to little kids. Join us, sit back and enjoy some free expression. Joseph Pearce is one of the most prolific authors, teachers, analysts, and commentators on the literary scene today. In more than 30 books, he's explored the works of Shakespeare, Belloc, Chesterton, Tolkien, Solzhenitsyn. You name the author, Joe has revealed that writer's deepest insights and significance. With such a background, who better to guide us through what often seems like an intimidating jungle of written words? And that's what he does in his new book, Classic Literature Made Simple. 50 Great Books in a Nutshell. Joe, thanks so very much for being with us again.
Oh, it's a joy. Thanks very much for having me again.
Basic question. What makes a written work great?
Well, I think the key thing that's something to qualify for what we might call the great books is their perennial relevance. So in many ways, a good book, like a good wine, improves with age. So if, shall we say, at least 50 years after its initial publication, it's still being read and talked about, then it can be taken seriously. And certainly if a century or so after it was first published, it's still being written and talked about and read and discussed, then we can certainly say this is a book that deserves to be treated seriously as a great book.
Occasionally we come across a book that maybe didn't have much of an impact at the time of its publication, but becomes appreciated later on.
That would be another example of a work's greatness. If a work, for whatever reason, was not on vogue when it was first published, but 50 or 100 years after finds an audience, it's because obviously it stood the test of time. And this is the real key for a great book is a great book addresses the permanent things, the perennial things, the things that are always part and parcel of human life and human nature and our relationship with God and neighbor. These perennial and permanent things are the ones expressed in the great books. If a work is merely expressing whatever is lately is faddish, whatever is up to date, as C.S. Lewis said, that fashions are always coming and going, but mostly going. And if something's up to date, it's a pretty sure sign it's going to be out of date soon. So it's not about being fashionable, it's about being perennially relevant.
Do great books always look like great books? I've tried to read many of the classics or what people present as the classics, and I find that sometimes they're not very easy to get into.
Some works are more accessible, some are easier than others. I'll give you some examples here. I mean, Gulliver's Travels, which is certainly a great book, is a work of satire. Right. And the thing with satire is it's very much addressing things that are in the news or topical of the time. And that, of course, is something which is going to become out of date and therefore difficult to access. So Gulliver's Travels, without footnotes to us, can be somewhat difficult to understand. But Gulliver, his journey, Jonathan Swift's commentary upon the journey, is dealing with perennial issues such as our human nature, our relationship with each other, our relationship with God, our relationship with technology. And these, of course, things that don't date. But we do have to, if you like, make the extra effort to get beyond that which is not immediately accessible. And sometimes that requires footnotes. Another example would be Dante's Divine Comedy. I mean, a lot of the people he speaks about are not known to us. They're forgotten by history. So we do need the apparatus of good footnotes to help navigate through the text. But there's no doubt at all that Dante's Divine Comedy is worth the effort.
Yeah, even Shakespeare, I mean, there are a lot of references in his plays to things that were contemporary and that are very obscure to us now.
Yes, indeed, and sometimes they can actually enlighten us about things. So, for instance, what's not known as regards Shakespeare, generally speaking, is that the only moneylenders in Shakespeare's England were Calvinists, because whereas Christianity, Catholic Christianity had always condemned usury, and Orthodox Christianity, Calvin said that usury was okay, and that meant the only moneylenders in Shakespeare's England were Calvinists. So although ostensibly on the literal level of the story, Shylock and the Merchant of Venice is Jewish. Shakespeare's audience would have seen him in some sense as a thinly veiled disguise for a Calvinist moneylender on the streets of London, not Venice.
Interesting. Okay, what are the great books that you concentrate on in this work?
Well, I take the whole thing chronologically. It was a series I originally wrote for Crisis magazine, in which I sought to try to encapsulate as succinctly as possible the gist of the great works in 1,000 words or so. So I took it chronologically. So we begin with the foundational works of Western literature, the two great epics of Homer, the Iliad and the Odyssey, and we go right through the ages, from the classic period before Christ, the medieval period, right through the early modern, and then into the 20th century. And indeed, I think I don't think there's any of the 20th. There was a couple right at the end of the 20th century, so only about 25 years ago. So it goes covers a period of almost 3,000 years.
That's a pretty large canon of literature to cover. Is there anything that is a common thread through these things that might help us to delve into them more readily and understand what the authors are telling us?
Yes. So basically, I set the scene up really that the great works show us who we are from a traditional Catholic and indeed philosophical, from the perspective of Plato and Aristotle, understanding of who we are. So we are anthropos, man who looks up in wonder at the heavens. As a man who's moved to contemplation and theology and philosophy. And that's anthropos. But also we're homo viator, man on a journey, or man on a pilgrimage, or man on the quest for heaven. And also homo superbus, proud man, the man who refuses the quest for heaven and wants to go his own way and do his own thing or not go anywhere in particular. So these three facets of who we are perennial to every generation, and these are the three facets of who we are which are addressed in these great works of literature. So it's a good way of holding up a mirror to ourselves as human persons and as a human species, to understand ourselves in relation to our God and our neighbor, and indeed to understand ourselves as ourselves.
Well, where can we find out more about this book and maybe buy it?
Well, the best one-stop place for everything of mine, both what I'm writing and what I'm doing, is my personal website. That's jpearce.co. And if you go to the books section of that website, you just click on the book title, and it will take you directly to the publisher's page and the link to purchase.
Joseph Pearce, literary sage, thanks very much for being with us. The book is Classical Literature Made Simple.
Thanks so much for having me. God bless you.
Hard as it may be to think about, we all face certain end-of-life considerations. How would I like my medical care handled? What are my funeral arrangements to be? How do I wish my estate to be disposed of? Such questions have serious moral implications that can affect the lives and prospects of those people we care most about. Well, if you've lived your life in a Catholic manner, your final affairs ought to be treated in a consistent way. Elizabeth Simutis represents Catholic Legacy, a firm that provides resources and guidance to help you plan for the future and navigate the tricky decisions we all have to make. Elizabeth, thanks very much for coming to talk about this.
Thank you. It is so nice to speak with you, and I am truly grateful that you took an interest in Catholic Legacy. It really does affirm your mission on your show of conveying the Christian message through the Catholic point of view. And it definitely defends the liberty which it makes possible to do that. So I am so excited to share this wonderful platform with you and your listeners.
Well, that's great. This is an issue, though, that most people aren't eager to deal with. Still, it must be faced. What are the essential concerns involved in end-of-life planning?
Well, when it comes to estate planning services in general, I think the biggest roadblocks are that it's very hard to find Catholic lawyers. They can be expensive, or even having the knowledge of understanding why you would want to have a Catholic lawyer. It's also difficult for people to face it because no one wants to face end of life. We live very much into the impulse of today. So I think the price and the combination of where do I go and the time spent on doing it can be a big roadblock.
Well, I've certainly reached an age where these issues are coming into focus for me. My wife as well. We talk about these things frequently, actually. But what are the practical steps that we ought to be taking to look ahead?
Well, I think you go to CatholicLegacy.com, first of all. CatholicLegacy.com will give you 3 tools to begin to understand the importance and value of planning for your future and your legacy at all ages. We shouldn't be waiting until, in fact, today's my 55th birthday. Oh. And I think the last thing I should be doing is waiting until I'm 55. We have 5 children, my husband and I. We've been married 27 years. We have built our lives from nothing to 2 careers, and we want to make sure that our children are cared for. We want to make sure that there's a place for them in case of tragedy. We want to make sure all that we have worked for, I think it's a very Catholic perspective to protect the dignity of our work and be able to pass that to future generations, because the alternative is it goes to the government, and the government gets to decide what to do with your hard work and your money. And that includes also charities. We want to make sure that what we do plan out can be given to charities if we choose, because that's where our passions come into play. Again, rather than the government deciding to spend it on things that we disagree with and don't support.
Yeah, that's a major consideration in this time when everything is so highly politicized. Any moral concern sort of gets shuffled off to the side. Everybody wants to leave something to their kids and their grandkids. I suppose we all have the fantasy of building a family fortune. How do you advise people to go about laying the groundwork for a real smooth transition, the setting up of some tangible assets for your kids? What's your general approach?
So at CatholicLegacy.com, there are 3 main features. One is the will writing form. You go there and you actually respond to the questions once you create an account. It's all free. And those questions guide you through a Catholic lens, all the things you would need to consider when leaving that financial legacy. It's not a financial tool per se, but it does allow you to indicate those assets or who you would like to benefit from that. The second tool is the healthcare directive, which is also something that is not talked about often, and people don't think about it until you're in a hospital and one of your family members has had a tragic experience, and all of a sudden you have to make choices of whether to take that family member off life support. And that family member could be at any age, not just elderly. And we want to make sure that you have the opportunity to articulate what decisions are made on your behalf and who your agent is, so that the doctor in the room isn't making that decision, nurses aren't making that decision, the lens of the hospital and the government isn't making those decisions, because a lot of times those decisions are made in the financial interest of the hospital, not honoring your faith and your wishes, and also the burden you place on family members who have to make those decisions. If they know what your desires are, then they can just execute and focus on, the grief and the healing and that cross that they have to bear in that way. So you have the estate planning tool, which is a form you fill out. There's the healthcare directive. And then the third tool is the wake, funeral, and cemetery guide. And this is something on our platform that we are really excited about, that as of today, I don't know of any other will writing platform that offers this for free. And it's a tool where you can specify how you want to be remembered. You can customize all your arrangements, and you can request masses for your soul. So when I say customize arrangements, you can listen to songs and you can choose your music. You can choose your pallbearers. You can choose your readings. And again, because we're aligned with the magisterium, it really has all of those things in there that you wouldn't know would exist unless you spent a lot of time studying Catholic funerals. Even you can request the Knights of Columbus to preside at your funeral. And who knew that that is even an option? So it takes a lot of the pressure off parishes to provide that information for you, your parish team, and it takes also the pressure off the funeral home, because it is really with the guide of that Catholic lens to help you specify how you want to be remembered.
Yeah, well, this is all nitty-gritty practical stuff. Very, very useful, I should say.
Mm-hmm. And what you do is you print it out. So you print these items out once you fill out the very easy-to-use forms, which you get guided through. You print it out. You can do it all, in a minimum of 15 to 30 minutes. And then what you do is you can take it to an attorney and have that attorney sign it and have the witnesses sign it. And that reduces the cost from what could be a $3,000, $5,000 expense or more just to do the financial planning part of that, really reduces it down to just that moment with the attorney to get that signature. Then you could actually load it back into CatholicLegacy.com, and we really focus on data protection and user experience so that you can share it with your loved ones and make it available that way. It gets stored there. It's really just kind of a one-stop turnkey shop in order for you to keep those documents all together. I want to mention one more thing. We are finding that since we launched Catholic Legacy, it really does assist individuals in planning to aid charities worldwide. In fact, we're seeing that users are leaving gifts to charity at a rate of 5 times the national average.
Really?
So 1 in 3 are making a charitable bequest in their wills, and this is really important because charities who are out there who are looking for a way for their donors to leave bequests for them, they can offer this free tool in a way for them to support their cause going forward into the future.
Well, we're all headed for eternity. I guess
Yeah, we are.
This is certainly something that applies to everybody. Once again, where can people find this information?
CatholicLegacy.com. Just go there, you make an account, and you can get started. It really is that easy. And meanwhile, you can take a look at all the information and resources in the blogs there to better understand all that we talked about today.
Elizabeth Simutis, Catholic Legacy. Thanks very much for taking time to tell us about this. It's something we should all look into because it's going to become due at some point.
For everybody. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. CatholicLegacy.com is really going to serve a lot of people, and we're happy to support your mission as well.
If there's one thing which can be said about Catholicism, it's that it's not simple. The Church, as it's evolved over the centuries, embraces a complex set of concepts and beliefs, along with a global institutional structure to define and teach them. How do you introduce children to what makes up the Church, or to what's going on at Mass, or ultimately to the Catholic way of thinking? Now, that's always been a challenge for parents. Fortunately, in our high-tech era, we have an array of communication technologies available to help Catholic moms and dads move their kids away from "be quiet and eat some more of those Cheerios," or "don't make so much noise with those kneelers," on to actual attentiveness and even participation. Spirit Juice Studios, a Chicago-based communication company, offers a video series especially designed to introduce kids to the faith. It's called Juicebox, and here to tell us about it is video wizard Rob Kaczmark. Rob, thanks for being with us.
Yeah, I've never been considered a video wizard. I like that. I'm going to put that on my LinkedIn today.
Jesus loves the little children, but those little children can be pretty squirmy and impatient. How do you connect with young kids?
Well, they definitely can be squirmy and impatient. I have 2 young boys who I love beyond words, but I also know how hard it can be with little kids, and I know people have more than, if you have more than two, I'm praying for you, because it's, some days I'm having a hard time keeping up. Communicating to them, I think grown-ups, we like to overthink things, and we get things too complicated, but for me, it's really simple. How are other people communicating to kids, and how are they taking it in? For us, and what we did for Juicebox, like I had some adult ideas as far as like, I think we should do this, I think we should do that. And I had to really take a step back and say, okay, well, what are other people doing? And I looked at, I gave myself permission by looking at some other creators on YouTube. And some of them, are just basically, they took a camera, started filming themselves, and they would dance around and do just kind of ridiculous things. And I saw kids were paying attention. And so I was like, okay, well, we don't have to do that much. We don't have to, like, overthink it and have, all this stuff. We just have to capture their attention for a short amount of time. And so pretty much every video we do for Juicebox has some sort of play element, something that intrinsically is just a level of play to bring them into it. So, for example, we use Lego a lot. It's a popular toy, and there's just a lot of creativity you can do with that. Kids are going to watch that video. For example, one of our first videos we put out was building a Lego confessional. So building a confessional, and the whole video is talking about confession and the importance of it. And if you think like, is the kid really going to watch that? Well, they're watching someone build it, and I'll tell you what, they do watch that. People watch the craziest things, and kids included will watch someone just build something. So you can just do something simple, build a Lego, and then while that's happening, give some other narration over it, talk about what it is. And so we try to combine those two and to always share the faith, but do it in a way that's, if it's not fun for the kids, they're not going to watch it. They don't have as much attention span as us grown-ups do. So you have to always kidify it.
You do make it very simple. You have a lot of visual action going on. They're brief. They're very creative. I can see where the kids would really tune into this. Also, the personalities of the characters that you've got there. You have animated characters and you have real-life people taking part. They really radiate a certain warmth and appeal. I'm sure that the kids connect with them as well.
Yeah, we try to, we have so our regular sort of like host is Billy. She's an animated character. She's voiced by Julia. We just shift her voice a little bit so it sounds a little bit higher. And so, Dilly gives us the flexibility to sort of like carry things through when we don't have an actual person on camera and be that narration throughout videos to kind of like bring kids along in a fun, kind of playful way. And then we have other hosts, too, that have been on the show that are regulars. So probably our most regular person is Father Tim. And Father Tim we've worked with a lot. He's actually the Newman Center at UIC. He runs that, and he's been a priest for a while, and we've filmed other things with him. He's got just a great sense for, like, talking to young people, not just little kids, but also high school, college age. He has a very just youthful approach to things, and so I think kids gravitate towards that. We introduced him really with a series called Ask a Priest, where kids ask priests questions, or ask him questions. And so just the way he answers it, he's got a good way of answering it in a way that, little kids will understand. And we've had sisters on there. And then also the biggest thing, too, and this was someone told me this, like, you got to have other kids on there. So we have a lot of regular kids that come on the show. Some of them are my own kids, and then other, family members here, and people bring their kids and other regular people. But kids want to see other kids. And so that's another huge thing. If kids sees another kid talking about, like, their faith or God or whatever, like, it gives them permission to be like, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine. It's not just, like, old people, because really anyone over 18 is an old person to a little kid.
How often do you provide new content? Do you come out weekly or multiple times a week, or what's your schedule?
Weekly, for sure. We have videos come out weekly. There are some weeks where we do more than that. So right now, actually, we're doing we call Prayer Week, which we have a new video each day, and they're shorter, though. So we have our regular cadence is every Friday we upload a video. We try to get on Friday so that, oftentimes, at least for my kids, there's more screen time on the weekends than there is on the weekdays.
Right.
So getting a new fresh video for that. And oftentimes it's kind of timed up seasonally or liturgically. For whatever's coming up that Sunday. And those could be, 5 to 12 minutes, really depends on the type of video it is, along with sometimes we'll have bonus videos, which are compilations. So, say, during Advent, we had, 60 minutes of Advent stuff, or 60 minutes of Christmas stuff, or Lent, or just, compilations of, 90 minutes of saints. and just different types of videos. So, I know for me as a parent, I'm often trying to get some stuff done. So if I know I can put something on for 60 minutes or 90 minutes and the content's good, I can go, do the dishes or clean up the living room or whatever it may be. So we try to keep the flow going of new stuff, covering the liturgical season, and just common things that kids and parents are searching for when they're trying to explain the faith to their little ones.
Well, it seems to be working. You recently achieved 1 million subscribers. That's pretty significant.
If you were to tell me we were going to hit 1 million a little over 2 years after we started, I would have been like, okay, where are the cameras? This is a joke. And so it's been incredible. I will say, though, the first year was slow. The first year we only had about 10,000 subscribers, so it was a slow growth. And then, like things often are, it's funny thing, I was talking to someone that's an actor, and he says, yeah, they say that it takes about 15 to 20 years to become an overnight success as an actor. And it's true. It's like, you look at us most recently, it's like, wow, our numbers just increased, but it doesn't take into account the year before that where our numbers weren't, and it doesn't take into account the year before that where we tried to launch this and it didn't work, and we tried to get off the ground and we just couldn't. So it takes a while. Even still, I think we got there quicker than I anticipated, but I think that just kind of proves the need that's out there. There is a need. There's not much out there for parents, and the reason we picked YouTube, because, there's other platforms and apps and stuff. I want to give parents an opportunity to see Juicebox without any barriers. Everyone, can access YouTube. It's free. And pretty much you can get it on almost any device between a phone, a computer, a TV. And so I think that really resonates with parents where they can get to it any way they can. They don't need to have a special login or anything like that. So just making it accessible for parents, I think, is huge for us.
Which, of course, raises the question, where can they find you?
So if you go to YouTube, the URL, if you're familiar with the URL for YouTube, it's Spirit Juice Kids. But if you're just going into, what I normally do is just go to the search, I just type in Juicebox Catholic, or you can do Spirit Juice Kids. It should pop up kind of no matter what. We, at this point, because we have quite a few subscribers, we put Spirit Juice Kids, it'll come up. But kind of anything related to that, you should see a whole bunch of our content.
Well, the stuff is really fun. It's enjoyable. It's lively. It's very engaging. I can see where little kids really tune into it. It's a very creative approach. Rob Kaczmark, Spirit Juice Studios. Hey, thanks very much for taking time to talk about this.
Bill, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here, and I just love the video wizard. I'm gonna tell people that. That's great. That's great.
Be with us next time when we explore other aspects of religious communication and look deeper into the great Christian heritage of free expression. Free Expression with Bill Kassel is a production of Good Shepherd Catholic Radio and Company Publications, where good books, good music, and good radio are always good company. Dan Curris provided technical assistance. Theme and incidental music are by Dan Adam. The program was produced and directed by Bill Kassel. This is Good Shepherd Catholic Radio.